From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, March the 19th, 2019. Israeli jets today struck a Palestinian terror cell in Gaza in response to a number of incendiary balloons that have been launched from Gaza into southern Israel this week, including several today. There were also clashes reported between Palestinians and Israeli troops near the Gaza security fence, as well as a number of boats, part of the so-called flotilla protest, approaching Gaza's maritime border with Israel this evening. Israel's Navy is stationed, as always, to prevent any such border breach. Ynet said that terror group Hamas renewed the nightly border riots and the flotilla after negotiations with Israel did not yield the results they wanted. In Jerusalem today, a ceremony was held for the opening of the Hungarian diplomatic trade mission in Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó attended the ceremony, where the Prime Minister spoke of its significance.
This is a very exciting moment for us because it's the first European diplomatic mission opened in Jerusalem in many decades. And three Hungarian diplomats are going to be assigned to this office for trade purposes, and that's important for trade, for diplomacy, and for the move that Hungary is leading right now to change the attitude in Europe towards Jerusalem.
Netanyahu also thanked Hungary for its strong support for Israel at international forums and its strong stance against anti-Semitism. Szijjártó spoke of the meaning of the mission as well and reiterated Hungary's position against any sort of boycott of Israeli goods from, for example, over the Green Line.
This is much more than a pragmatic economic cooperation. This is a friendship. We reject to combine restrictive economic and commercial measures with political issues. We will not apply the decision of the European Commission on labeling. We do not support the list of companies in the settlements to be announced by the High Representative of Human Rights of the United Nations, and we urge for a tighter, better, and more dynamic cooperation between Israel and the European Union.
At least 30 Jewish gravestones were vandalized this past weekend with hateful graffiti. Swastikas and anti-Jewish messages and threats were found scrawled on dozens of headstones at the Hebrew Cemetery in Fall River, Massachusetts. The Anti-Defamation League of New England called the incident an inexcusable act of anti-Semitic hatred, where we honor and remember the lives of community members. Local police are investigating. Some 2,000 people marched in silence through the Greek city of Thessaloniki this past Sunday to mark the anniversary of the first Nazi transport of the city's Jews to the Auschwitz death camp. They held white balloons that had the words "Never Again" written on them, marching until the city's old railway station, which is where the transport began on March the 15th of 1943. Thessaloniki's Jewish community before the Holocaust stood at 55,000. Less than 2,000 of the community's Jews survived. Israel's Defense Ministry announced a series of successful tests conducted with the U.S. Missile Defense Agency of an advanced version of the David's Sling missile interception system. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel continues to be a global pioneer in the development of missile defense systems, expressing thanks, he said, to our ally and our partner, the United States, in promoting this important security project. Well, a new bipartisan political action committee was launched today, Pro-Israel America. The group's website explains that it works to strengthen support for the U.S.-Israel relationship by independently supporting pro-Israel candidates and educating voters. The group is founded by Jeff Mendelson and Jonathan Misner, who are former staffers at Pro-Israel Lobby, AIPAC. The Pittsburgh Jewish community has reached out to the family and friends of the Muslims murdered last week at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. Chairwoman of the board of the Jewish Federation of Pittsburgh, Meryl Ainsman, told Now magazine, referring to the deadly shooting last year at the Tree of Life Synagogue in the city, "Unfortunately, we are all too familiar with the devastating effect a mass shooting has on a faith community." She said the Federation is collecting donations for Christchurch's Muslim community. And the daughter-in-law of one of the 11 people murdered at the Tree of Life, Marnie Feinberg, said New Zealand may be halfway around the globe, but it's the same story of hate and violence against people peacefully praying to their Creator. The Israeli lunar lander Bereshit completed another successful maneuver this morning. Space IL and IAI, Israel Aerospace Industries engineers, performed the maneuver, activating Bereshit's main engine for about 60 seconds. They reported that the spacecraft's systems are functioning as expected, and Bereshit is scheduled to leave Earth's orbit and enter the Moon's orbit on April the 4th, with a landing on the Moon still set for April the 11th. 30-year-old Blair Braverman is reported to be the first Jewish woman to compete in and finish the Iditarod, the historic dog sled race that spans 1,000 miles from Anchorage to Nome, Alaska. Braverman and her 14 dogs crossed the finish line on Sunday after 13 days, 19 hours, 17 minutes, and 2 seconds. The writer and adventurer regularly shares information about her life raising dogs, racing, and being the only Jew in her rural Wisconsin community on social media. Upon completing the race, she wrote, "It was the hardest thing I've ever done and also the most beautiful." Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Tuesday, March the 19th at 7 o'clock. It's episode 5 of the award-winning Israeli series, A Touch Away. At 8, Rabbi Ken Spiro talks about 7 characteristics of Jewish history which reflect a profound connection to biblical prophecy. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Matthew Lazar, founding director of the Zamir Choral Foundation, on L'chaim. And at 10, it's a concert of Hazamir's teen choir. And coming up right after this newscast tonight, it's Insight to Israel. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, March the 19th, 2019. I'm Teisha Bader.